I thought I'd rank the Beatle albums. It's enough to drive you to drink. Welcome to the Tainted Tavern.
Welcome to the Tainted Tavern. Come sit inside for free.
Okay, now I figured that I'd rank the Beatle albums because some of my classic rock videos lately been getting a lot of views. So I thought I'd rank the Beatle albums. That's going to get lots of views. People are going to pull into that ranking the Beatle albums. Everyone loves the Beatles. This year, someone's opinion on what's the best and worst Beatle album, and so I started thinking about it. I started thinking about it about 3 or 4 days ago. I had an album at number 1, which was Abbey Road, and then that was replaced by Sgt. Pepper's, which in itself was replaced by Revolver, and then I think Abbey Road, in fact, I've been in every position from number 1 to number 5 in my rankings, and after a while I just started pulling my hair out, and as I say, it's enough to drive you to drink. So I thought, okay, calm down. But how do you do it? How do you rank the original Beatle albums? The Beatles have been part of my life for so long now that do I use the original UK albums, which I've got here on vinyl. I've got the old set. I've also got the old set on CD as well. The basically all of the Beatle albums there, as well as some extras such as Let It Be Naked, the Beatles 1. Of course, there's the white album there with the special extended edition with the Escher sessions. Or do I use the American albums or the Soul, Meet the Beatles, the Beatles' second album, the American version of Hard Day's Night, which is totally different to the British version of Hard Day's Night, or then there's something new by the Beatles, the Beatles 65, the early Beatles, the Beatles VI, Roman numerals, see how cool that can be. The Beatles Help, which again is a totally different album to the British. Beatles Help, the Beatles Yesterday and Today with the famous Butcher cover there, or even A Jude, which was a kind of combination album. This incidentally is one of the weirdest Beatle albums ever. It's a brilliant album, don't get me wrong, but it was released after the Beatles had split more or less, and it collected a lot of the tracks which hadn't featured on any of the American albums. So, but the first 2 songs on here are Can't Buy Me Love and I Should Have Known Better, which comes from the early Beatles, and the rest of the album is made up of later songs, Hey Jude, Revolution, so it's really weird. But anyway, that's the American editions, and I thought, okay, you can't use the American editions for the ranking of Beatle albums. You've got to go with the official UK discography, and so I decided, okay, number 30, the worst Beatle album, if there is such a thing as a worst Beatle album, because every album is brilliant. So, but the worst Beatle album would have to be Yellow Submarine, and the reason for this is only half a Beatles album. It's the soundtrack of the movie, brilliant movie, The Yellow Submarine, classic animated movie, pop art and all that, you know, very Monty Python-ish in places, the kind of animation they would use in the Monty Python series. So this would have to be the last. So this is the least, in my opinion, or at least I thought it was my opinion, this would be the least Beatle album in terms of greatness, even though they're all great, including this. And the reason for this is, of course, it's only half a Beatles album. You've got Yellow Submarine, which was on Revolver, so it's not even a new song. You've got Only a Northern Song altogether now. Hey Bulldog, It's All Too Much, All You Need Is Love. I love It's All Too Much, very underrated George Harrison song that should have been on Magic Mystery Tour or even Peppers. But then side 2 of this album is made up of George Martin's musical score for the movie Yellow Submarine, which in itself is pretty good. So I thought, okay, I'm safe enough putting this at number 13 as the least of all the Beatle albums. But then I thought this has largely been replaced these days by the Yellow Submarine song track, which does away with the George Martin scores and features every song that was featured in the film. So you've got Yellow Submarine, A Bulldog, Eleanor Rigby, Love You Two All Together Now, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Think for Yourself, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band with A Little Love for My Friends, Baby You're a Rich Man, Only a Northern Song, All You Need Is Love, 1 of 64, Nowhere Man, It's All Too Much. This is fantastic. So this, to some extent, has replaced the actual Yellow Submarine album. So I thought, if I was going on this one, then I would say it's the least Beatle album. But if I was going on this version, then I don't think it would be number 13 anymore. Number 13 would probably be something like Let It Be or Beatles for Sale. And the reason for that is both of those albums seem a little bit disjointed to me. They don't seem like a full band effort. I think Beatles for Sale features the weariness of the Beatles at the time is evident in it. A lot of people say, look at the expression. Let me get Beatles for Sale here. I'll get the vinyl to show you the cover. But a lot of people say the cover shows the tiredness on their faces. You know, the way they were exhausted and rushing out album after album. So even though I think this is a fantastic album, it would feature low in my rankings. But then when I'm looking at the tracks on this absolutely superb album, you've got No Reply. I love No Reply. You've got I'm a Loser again. What a vocal from John Lennon there. Rock and Roll Music. The Beatles version of Rock and Roll Music, absolutely fantastic. Lennon vocal again. You've got I Follow the Sun, Mr. Moonlight. So putting this low in the rankings would be something that I may do one day but wouldn't do the following day, so I gave up on that and all. And number one proved to be really difficult for me. Saying which is the best Beatle album, that seemed to me to be just insane. I mean, how do you do that? It's like saying who is the best of your children? You know, if you've got children, every one of them are equal to each other. And I thought, okay, number one would usually, 9 times out of 10, I would say the best Beatle album is Abbey Road. I absolutely love this album. It's fantastic from start to finish. And the medley, the long, or known as the long one by Beatle fans, the medley on side 2 is the reason years were invented. So I thought this would have to be number one. But then when I thought about it, I thought maybe this is a little better. And then maybe this is even better than the 2. You know, it depends what mood you're in. I think all 3 of these albums, Peppers, Revolver and Abbey Road, would happily sit on the top spot of any Beatles album ranking. And what about the plain one, the White Album? I mean, this to me I'm one of those who feels that this probably would have been better as a single album because there is a lot of filler on here. But then when I've sat down, and a lot of Beatle fans have done this, when I've sat down and looked at the album and tried to compile a single album from this double album, I kind of second guess myself, and a song I may think, okay, I'll leave that off. But then I'm thinking, no, I really like that should be on there, and I can't do it. So maybe it is perfect as a double album, which is how it came out. The only song I think on here that I could quite happily bin and never hear again would be Revolution 9, the John Lennon avant-garde, loads of nonsense that should never have been on. That's the only song, in fact, to my opinion, that's the only truly bad Beatles song. And what about Magical Mystery Tour? I mean, where does this come in the rankings? Because it's basically a son of Sgt. Pepper in terms of the music on here. Does it come low in the list? Does it come up in the list? I place Sgt. Pepper at number 1 as the best Beatle album. Then this would have to be at least in the top 3. It just cooked my head. So I found there was no way of ranking the Beatle albums. I failed to do it. And Rubber Soul, I mean, this is a fantastic album, absolutely fantastic Beatle album. It really heralded the start of this new Beatles sound, which they took even further on Revolver and then on Sgt. Pepper's and all his subsequent albums that followed. But then again, I'm one of those weird people that loves Rubber Soul to death, but considers the just trying to find it now. Should have put these in order. I actually consider the American version of Rubber Soul even better than the UK version. One of the few American albums that I really think tops the British version. Now, there are less songs on this than on the UK version, and it emits some fantastic songs. I mean, Rubber Soul starts off with Drive My Car, which is an excellent song. It's not on the American Rubber Soul. The American Rubber Soul starts with I've Just Seen a Face, which was actually on the Help British albums. But I just feel that the American Rubber Soul feels more like a folk rock album than the British Rubber Soul. Both albums are fantastic. If someone said to me, okay, you can only have one of these albums, one of them I've got to take away from you and never hear it again, which one would it be? I wouldn't be able to decide. Generally, I think I'd say, okay, I'm keeping the UK version, right? You can take the Yankee one, throw it through the window, but then this gives a different feel. Even though it's basically the same album, it gives a different feel. So I failed there. And then the other movie soundtrack albums, such as A Hard Day's Night and the Beatles' Help. Which of these is better? I mean, it's really hard to say. I mean, Hard Day's Night orders distinction of being the first Beatle album to be solely composed by Lennon and McCartney. In fact, it's the only Beatle album to be solely composed by Lennon and McCartney, because after this, although Lennon and McCartney composed the bulk of every single Beatle album, there were often songs composed by George Harrison on the album. So this is the only one that was solely composed by Lennon and McCartney, and it's a fantastic album. Again, not a bad track on. I mean, there's 14 tracks on your own together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 14 tracks on your own together. 7 from the soundtrack of the movie Hard Day's Night, and another 7 extra tracks to fill out the album. The Beatles, and I Love Her, another McCartney song, which I think is wonderful. You've got Anytime at All, I'll Cry Instead, Things We Said Today, I'll Be Back to end the album. It's a fantastic album. And then, is that better than Help? I mean, Help, I feel, may not be as cohesive as A Hard Day's Night, but again, this has got some brilliant stuff on here. Not only the title track Help, but you've got The Night Before, which is a wonderful rocky performance from McCartney. You've got Hide Your Love Away, of course, which is Lennon stepping almost into Bob Dylan territory. You've got Another Girl, You've Got to Lose That Girl, Ticket to Ride, Act Naturally, It's Only Love, You Like Me Too Much, Tell Me What You See, I've Just Seen a Face, which of course kicked off the American version of Rubber Soul. Yesterday, and Dizzy Miss Lizzy. So, and then you've got the first 2 Beatle albums with the Beatles, which was the second album, and the first album, Please Please Me. Now, this is a very primitive sounding album in comparison to what the Beatles would come out with. Both of these are rather primitive in comparison to what the Beatles did afterwards. So would this have been low if I managed to do my ranking? Well, not really, because this is probably the album that is most reflective of the early Beatles cavern set. This is most true to what the Beatles used to do in the cavern, and of course it was recorded in one mammoth recording session, I think 13-14 hours from start to finish, and it's absolutely full of energy. And I love the photograph there of the very young Beatles. This photograph was used later and redone for the 2 albums, 60, the Red album, and then the Blue album, which collected all the Beatles hits. And so they created this image. The later Beatles recreated the image in the same place. Then with the Beatles, I mean, do I rank this low? Some of the cover versions on here I think are excellent. Please Mr. Postman is brilliant. Roll Over Beethoven is brilliant. Devil in a Heart. And then the Lennon McCartney originals, It Won't Be Long, All I've Got to Do, All My Love In. George Harrison, of course, Don't Bother Me on you. You've got Hold Me Tight, I Want to Be Your Man, Not a Second Time. I think it's virtually impossible to rank Beatle albums, so I gave up halfway through it. He said, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to do a video instead called Failing to Rank the Beatle Albums. I don't know how I can do it, because I don't know what the favourite album is. 9 times out of 10, as I say, I would say my favourite Beatle album is Abbey Road. But then, depending on what mood I'm in, sometimes Sgt. Pepper's, sometimes it's Revolver, sometimes it's a White Album. And if I want early Beatles, then maybe Hard Day's Night takes the top spot. But then again, what about Please Please Me, as I've said, which is more reflective of the early cavern days. So I really don't think you can rank the Beatles albums. So that's it. I failed to rank the Beatles albums. But thanks for watching. Please give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment below if you can manage to rank all the Beatle albums yourself. What do you think is the worst Beatle album? What do you think is the best Beatle album? And also, if you haven't subscribed already to this channel, then please do so. So I'll leave you with that for now. It's been a fab evening. Cheers, Yakida Solange. Come back soon to the Tainted Tavern.
Come back soon.